Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video, we're going to do something different and talk about two audio devices from a company called Hercules. This is the Stream 200 XLR, and then you have the Stream 100, which is basically a digital audio controller. So this review is not going to be super long, at least by my standards, if you've watched some videos I've made in the past, but I did want to talk about how these performed, kind of go over the feature set, what's changed since I got it, and hopefully by the end, if you're in the market for something like this or just want to learn more about it, you get something good to take away from it. All right, so let's start with the Stream 200 XLR, which right now I am currently talking to you through. I wanted to do the majority of this video using the Stream 200 XLR microphone preamp so you can hear what it sounds like. And we'll go over some of the features and stuff in the software. And if you can't tell, if you're not familiar with this mic, I'm using the Rode Podcaster mic. It's a decent mic. It's nothing crazy, but what's good about this mic is it needs a lot of amp gain to be properly driven and sound the way it should. So I've had some issues with other XLR interfaces not having enough amp gain. And what's cool about the 200 XLR is the mic preamp gain is not bad. It has like, a standard mode where it doesn't do any 48 volt phantom power. You can enable the 48 volt phantom power, but then it comes with an additional external microphone preamp to give you a more decibel gain. It's kind of like an XLR like Cloud Lifter, which those things are over $100. And I also purchased a Motu XLR interface, which is a more expensive unit. I bought the M6, and the microphone preamp gain is not as strong as my Wave XLR or the Hercules 200 XLR, and I had to use the microphone preamp from my Stream 200 XLR on the Motu just to get a usable volume. But what was really cool and evident is this little XLR boost that they come with in the box is actually quite high quality. You can hear right now that there's basically no mic noise or issues. Now, on the note of microphone noise, though, one thing I did run into, and originally I thought it was associated to the 200 XLR, so when I moved the old XLR cable, I had kind of like a ringing effect, especially when I was at higher gain. It had significant noise, and normally I'm not like about buying gold cables and all these special things to get big benefits. There are tangible benefits to a high quality XLR cable. Don't spend thousands of dollars or hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but purchase a Mogami cable, just to be simple. If you really want to minimize the chance of issues and get the best out of your equipment, I switched from a stage right cable from Amazon, and then I bought the Mogami cables, which you can get them directly from Mogami, like authorized sellers, or through Amazon. It's world's best cable. So I have a real Mogami cable, and it got rid of all of my noise. And obviously, depending on where you place the cable and all that. So if you get any kind of a hiss or a ringing sound, there's a chance that you need to move your XLR cable, maybe get a shorter one, but I just wanted to point that out. All right, so another advantage about the Stream 200 XLR over at least the 100 and some other products that are digital only is this has an actual mic preamp, but it also has volume controls for a lot of sources, and there's different ways you can interact. So I'm going to be blunt. This is not going to be as feature rich as something like what a Wave XLR does or some of these other products that incorporate a lot of other plugins into its own software. That's not the end of the world, because I could tell you one of the selling points to me with this, especially when I deal with a lot of different audio devices, is I want less stuff to install on my computer. I want the programs to be extremely lightweight and efficient. And if you don't need all of these extra features, sometimes less is more. And this is a really good alternative to other programs that, frankly, sometimes just throw too much of the kitchen sink at you for things you may not actually use. So the physical interface is a nice layout for me. It's not an insanely high-res screen. It's not super bright, but it's clear enough. And for what it's designed to do, it's still very easy to observe and make your changes. One of the things I really like is how easy it is to quickly adjust your volume changes without having to go through software or other controls on your screen. Because you don't have a physical slider, it gives you some more versatility, even though it's controlling whether it's a virtual audio device or one of the audio sources on the unit itself. So you have a button on the top right corner that can toggle between what you hear and what your audience hears, because there's multiple audio outputs on Windows in terms of like a virtual audio driver. So you can set that audience output to something like OBS, and then instantly control that through the same four knobs. All I have to do is press the button on the right corner here, and as you switch between modes, I can adjust the volume of that source independently. So if I'm in audience mode and I want to turn my microphone down for the crowd, but I want to hear myself louder on my IEMs, for example, in this case, I can quickly do that. And if I want to link them, I can press the little, what looks like a paperclip or a link button, if you will, on the right-hand side, Press that, and then whatever knob you adjust both sources or both outputs at the same time. This is really handy if you're like listening to music in between games and you want your audience to hear the music as well as yourself. And then once the game kicks off, if that link button is on, you can quickly turn the volume down for what you hear and what your audience hears. Now, another nice thing is if I click page 2 on the software, the unit will change in real time and I can preview what I'm changing. This has several other additional inputs on the back. So you have a line in and out, you have an optical in, and all of this allows you to digitally mix that in with your sources. So whether you're doing a blend of stuff from a console output, you have a mobile device, or any other system, there's a lot of flexibility here, obviously, with analog and optical, but at least you can do that blend. And it's not, again, as a whole, you can blend it independently for yourself and for your audience. Now, right now, I'm using IEMs connected directly to the Stream 200 XLR, and that thing gets quite loud. It's not going to be a hi-fi audiophile grade headphone amp. None of these things are. Most of them are pretty bad, but this is actually quite good, and it gets quite loud. And I do like the way the volume feels as far as quickly adjusting what I hear on my IEMs. So it's a nice tactile feel. There's decent resistance to it. It's not like super loose or overly tight or notchy, but at least I know very easily if I'm adjusting or not without looking at it. And if you are looking at it, you can see the little LED changing, kind of going up and down as you adjust the volume. So it gives you a quick indicator of where that unit's at separately from Windows, because the volumes do work independently from each other. Now you can customize the screen as well. I went with a dark screen right now just to make it easier for the camera to pick up, but you can customize everything you see in addition to the way the meters are actually showing stuff. So all I have to do is click the purple icon on the top right that hits settings. And then if I go to customization here on the left-hand side, you can see screen brightness, and then you can see cyber. There's a lot of different ones that come with it, and then you can, of course, add your own. Hercules Stream is nice and bright, and if I add my wallpaper, it's kind of like a space theme. Keep in mind, the busier you go, it may be harder to see your actual volume meters on the screen. So I'm going to stick with something dark for now, and then in addition to that, you can actually change the modes. So the VU meters have the solid bar, the dots, skinnier bar, and let's face it, even skinnier. I don't like them to be too skinny because if you have this much screen real estate, it's not like you're freeing it up for something else. So I want them as easy to see. And if you are concerned with left and right because you have multiple interfaces connected and maybe you're doing a podcast and someone's on the left feed and another person's on the right, it's helpful to go in a stereo mode, which puts a lot more information on the screen, but it can tell you if one side's off compared to the other. So that's handy as well. If you do go with a brighter screen, so I'll go back to Hercules Stream, this will make it easier to see. You have the action zone, which is basically the button setup to tell you with labels what each of the 4 buttons do. If I switch to transparent, it exposes that underlying overlay. Instead of being black, it'll kind of show whatever your wallpaper is. And then there's different ways of framing that information as well if you like it to be presented differently. It's nothing like game changing, it's not super elaborate as far as what you can adjust, but it does help you kind of dial it in to get you close to what's better for your workflow and what you like to see. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm talking to you on the Rode Podcaster mic, and on the back of the Stream 200 XLR is a button to enable the 48 volt preamp. Now, this is for your phantom power because some microphones require it, but you also have to change that setting inside the Hercules software as well. So you would go into your settings, like, where we were customizing our screen earlier from here. If I click XLR microphone, this is where I can make my changes. All right, so I'm using the default preset right now. And if I do this drop down, the gain gets a bit higher going to the next preset. So you have to keep an eye on your gain settings here. And if you go too high, this is where you could introduce some noise. So just make sure you're not maxing out the gain on the mic itself and then compensating in OBS by turning OBS really far down. So I'm going to switch to Radio Bright, and I know the gain is going to jump up quite a bit. So I just lowered it from 10 to 5. I can hear myself significantly louder. So this is the noise gate changes. And then if I go back to default, you can see how it says 1, and I go back to right, and now it's at 5. The only thing I'm not crazy about with this is not, you can't adjust it in a very tiny amount. You have like big swings. So if I go to this, it's at 5 right now. Now it's at 1, and it just jumps. So I think, I got 4 and then 7. And if you clicked it, you can use the up and down arrow to move up and down, but it's still going up at 3 milliseconds at a time. And the noise gate is something important to set. The default threshold is in the 50s, and I find that that's not aggressive enough. It will pick up a lot of movement on the desk, typing, keyboard noises, things like that. So I set mine to -38, and if your gain is set properly, that should be more than enough. This also changes the dynamic settings. I'm not going to do a full audio lesson on dynamics, but I do like that it has a compressor and limiter, because if you vary the volume or amplitude of your voice, this software will help kind of compress or keep it in a more narrow volume window. Your viewers and listeners will greatly appreciate having some form of a compressor. And then the equalizer is how you kind of fine tune it to better suit your voicing. So I just want to show you an example. Radio Bright is actually the least complementary to my voice with this microphone. So I'm going to switch to Radio Dark and Natural Dark, which are my favorite two. And I think Radio Dark sounds fantastic. I like the Radio Dark preset myself. And then you have Natural Dark as well, which you could see a little bit of an EQ changing. Radio Dark, it shows -1 decibel here, and I think the bass changed as well. That one didn't change, so it really looked like 4 kilohertz was the only thing that really changed, which is like your pinna gain region. So if you do sound a little recessed or too relaxed sounding, adjusting 4K will give your voice just a little bit more bite, a little bit more energy, like in the clarity area of your voice. So I'm going to leave it at natural dark, and then the dynamics, they do change based off presets as well. Some of it will kind of simulate more of a proximity effect, but I didn't really have to mess with this too much. I actually felt like the presets did a good job. The noise gate, when you change your profiles, it does reset noise gate. And again, I set mine to -38. And if you dial in your own settings and you're really happy with a particular one, just save as a new profile and then recall that whenever you do changes later. This is where you can customize the changes of what is controlling what. And originally, occasionally, when things would change as far as adding software, your webcam, game capture, stuff like that, sometimes these audio sources would go dead and you'd have to kind of like reassign it again. So if I click this, you can see what pops up. Now, right now, this is set, it says chat volume. That's because Hercules actually presents windows with several audio devices that you can select. So if you're playing Call of Duty or you're using Discord, then you would want to select the Hercules chat output, and anything that is routed to that audio device will be controlled by this particular volume setting. You can also change the color of it, both for the audience one and yourself. In addition to that, you can also build your own gradients. So if you want the top part to be red and the bottom part to be, green, you can do that. You can even custom pick and really like fine tune exactly what you're looking for. That's not my favorite color palette. But on the microphone side, you can see I have a little gradient set here and I like the way it looks. Now, in addition to clicking on these volume icons or the VU meters and adjusting what they actually do, you can also do the same thing on the little mute button here. That's all that button does, by the way. I haven't been able to assign it to anything else. So again, this isn't as feature rich as some other programs out there, but purely on the audio side, a lot of people just want volume adjustment and the ability to mute. Now, in addition to clicking the VU meter to customize, you can also click on the volume icon or the little mute button, because those two are linked with each other. Then you have these buttons here, which again is above and below the mute. Kind of a weird layout. It could be a little bit confusing, but the top part is just because that's the screen that's showing you what that button does. So it's kind of like the screen top and bottom are related to the knob and button on the bottom, top and bottom. That's kind of one way to look at it, if that makes sense. You can change the icon and it will start scraping and picking up icons from other programs that you've opened while the program is running. You can also import your own by clicking the plus sign if you have a really small icon file. That makes it a little bit easier to import. Now, you also have the ability to change these buttons. Instead of just like an action button for media, we can do some other things here. So I clicked on settings and then server access, and I configured OBS to support a webhook, which the Hercules software can link to. If you don't set a password in OBS, just make sure that the port is correct, and when OBS is running, this program would automatically connect to it. I provided a password because I'm a security nut, and I didn't want to leave that open for any reason. So if I click OBS, you can see that I have other options here, and that includes scene switch. So if I click scene switch and drag it to one of these, let's replace the website with it. Yes, I want to reassign. Now I can choose which scene. So there's a drop down, and this is my actual OBS hook right now. So these are the scenes that are available to me that I also control with other hardware. So it's really easy to adjust, and I can change my name. Now, the only thing that I wish this had, you can see it says play audios file, scene switch, filter on and off, toggle recording, and start stop stream. There are more things you can do than that in OBS. The biggest omission right now is sources. I can't enable or disable a webcam. This is for Hercules that's maybe watching this, or for anyone else. This is my biggest feature request for this particular plugin. If you have the ability to turn on and off sources, then it is a much more viable all-in-one solution for streaming, because that's a pretty important thing. Some people just switch scenes, and if that's the case, that's totally fine. You can obviously still mouse over that, but from a hardware standpoint, that's the only big omission. It's going to be the same idea with Streamlabs and VoiceMod. I don't use those, so I can't link and show you. But overall, it's limited, but for what it does do, it does pretty well. I have a couple bugs like I showed you on the XLR side of things, but there is a lot of power here. And again, the biggest thing to take away from this is if you don't want to deal with all the extra software and bloat or things that might overcomplicate things, this is kind of like a plug and play audio solution with basic scene switching, if you look at it that way. It has an excellent microphone preamp at this price, and that little cloud lifter equivalent mic preamp that it comes with allows you to basically use any XLR mic you have. And if you can't tell, I think the mic preamp sounds fantastic. My voice sounds great on this, and with a right microphone cable, I have no hiss or any of those issues. I didn't mention this, but a lot of people do care about the real-time mic monitoring, and it's fantastic. I sound great on this, and it's not just because I have a wonderful voice. It is in real time, and it's not adding any weird processing noises or latency, which is horribly distracting on interfaces that do that. So the real-time monitoring is definitely money here. All right, so I want to talk to you about the little brother, the Stream 100. This thing is a magical little box that doesn't care what kind of audio products you use. It's a digital volume controller without all of the excessive software bloat that a lot of other audio controllers and products use. So I use the Stream Deck Plus. I haven't hid that before. I think this is a wonderful product. It has a lot of features and customization, and you have these little knobs at the bottom which can be used to customize your lighting, your mic gain if you want it to on OBS, or even things like digital audio sources or virtual audio sources. This guy is a little bit more simple, and I still have some buttons for things like OBS. I can customize a basic scene switcher, which is cool. But the money of this guy, the magic of this, is being able to control all audio sources without adding and creating additional ones I don't need. All right, so one of the downsides with the Hercules software is I can't use more than one Hercules product at the same time. So because I was using the 200 XLR for the microphone portion, I had to disconnect that. And I'm talking to you on the Wave XLR now, which is intentional because I wanted you to hear the difference. So when we look at the Hercules software, everything's been reset because I changed devices. So I'm going to click on settings, and this will look familiar. So if I click on customization, just like the 200 XLR, I can choose my wallpapers. I can change the background. I usually like something dark because it's easier to see, and you can customize the VU meters again. I'm not going to revisit this whole thing, but at least you can see that you get the similar customization in addition to screen brightness. The big kicker with this, though, like I said, is the digital volume control. So I wanted to show you what that looks like because it's a little confusing. You see peripherals. That's not like mouse and keyboard. This is where you adjust your audio. So I mentioned the whole Wave XLR thing being kind of a pain because it presents a ton of different devices. I had to connect my Wave XLR for the microphone, and you can see on the playback side, there are a ton of choices here. Then I have SteelSeries Sonar. Oh, look, more Elgato Wave XLR. You can see why sometimes you may not want all that extra software and bloat. And you can hide that in Windows, but again, if you do a software update, all these just magically pop back sometimes. So I wanted to show you something really important. Now, if you use SteelSeries Sonar for streaming, parametric EQ, content creation, I thought I had to select it as an input. But when you're adjusting it in Sonar, and I'll show you how this works, you actually have to go to playback, look for the Sonar virtual device, which again, on the software side, I can't make this show the entire device. You have to hover over it, and you can see it presented at the top. So I'm going to go through Sonar, and there's the microphone one. I'm going to put the volume one here, and now I have my volume adjustment assigned. So I'm going to type Sonar mic, and I'm going to click OK. So now you can see that it is set up on the right side. You can see it on the screen even. It updates in real time. And I want to show you what happens in Sonar. So I'm going to put the Sonar overlay here. And if I change this knob, you could see it move up and down. Now, I am bypassing Sonar for the recording because I didn't want to mess the recording up. But this is the best part about this little device is I can use something like Sonar and then use the device to interact with it, which is amazing. I know it sounds so simple, but the convenience of having physical knobs to change this stuff is awesome. And again, the same thing is going to happen if I click on, we're going to go to the game output. So there's microphone, there's chat. So I might as well grab that and put that here. And I'm going to call it Sonar Chat. I'm going to go back. We're going to get the Sonar Game. That's the one I really need right now more than anything. Maybe it's at the top. There it is. And then Sonar Gaming. And I ran into a character limit. There's 3 character limits. So I'm going to call this Gaming instead. I guess that's another thing I didn't notice before. I usually don't call it Sonar when I assign my own. So we have Gaming, I have Sonar Chat, and then the Sonar Mic. And I'm going to pull Sonar back up. And as I interact with these, you can see I'm changing the game volume and I'm changing my chat. Now, Sonar, you still have to select the appropriate output. So if you are planning on using this, that's the extra layer of configuration. But the key of this device is that you're just interfacing with it. So you have game to chat mix here, which isn't currently lit up because I don't have a program using chat mix. I could if I stuck something over there, you know, like if the web browser is playing, I could drag it. But the killer feature here is I can just turn my friends down in game very quickly. I can turn the game down to only hear my friends, and the same thing happens with the music, whatever you assign it to. Now, in addition to audio, yes, you could still do the OBS adjustments. This part can be a little bit misleading because you have all of your scene switching and traditional stuff that I covered before with the Stream 200. All of the bottom ones are just volume. So I thought this was originally going to allow me to toggle sources on and off, which would have been amazing, but it's still just like the volume of the webcam source. So again, I wish they added sources. It is what it is, but I did want to highlight that. You do have apps you can use. So if you want to assign one of the 4 buttons to an app launcher, well, you can do that as well. And then on the action side of things, you can interact with a media player, launch a web page, etc. I think the real focus of this product is still on the audio mixing side. And as you saw, it can be quite handy, but it does this stuff as well. So with that being said, that about wraps up the review. This was sent to me for review. I have no affiliate links. I'm not participating in affiliate programs because I never want you to think that I'm motivated to sell these. I get no kickbacks with them. This was only done because I wanted to try other products in the audio side of things for mixing and controlling. And thanks to the updates, it's a lot more viable and I've been enjoying it. I'm not going to say this is the right product for everyone, but if those features are all that you're looking for, especially with that awesome virtual mixer of the 100, I think a lot of people can be happy with it. So with that being said, I will have links in the description below to help you find and purchase it. Again, I get no kickbacks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next video. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.